Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Balaji. I'm excited about the hot topics we have for this episode. How are things with you?
Absolutely, Rajni. I'm just easing into summer. See, I got the summer attire. It's super hot. Even in LA, it's hot already. It's crazy. But yeah, good times.
Yeah, we are reaching 110 in Texas, so we definitely all boiling here. So good. All right, so there's just as hot as Texas is at this point. That news never stops in the AI space. So I want to cover some of the new things we've been playing with, some things that are coming out as early as today with one of the topics. But again, what we want to present to the audience is we've been playing with OpenAI, with BART, all kinds of open LLMs, but we've never touched Anthropic. So they just released their Claude 2 version. So let's start there. Let's start.
Absolutely. Let's start the timer on Claude. I'm gonna bring up the screen here. There you
Yeah,
go.
just some, when you're doing that, I want to give some background about it, right? This is a Google-backed company that has released a competitor. Almost every day, somebody's releasing a Chat GPT rival, but this one it's Google-backed, so we have to pay attention to it. And it can do a lot of things that Chat GPT can do and more. They've increased the handling. It can handle about 75,000 words from right for the load.
Yeah.
Expert in math. It's supposed to be lesser errors that it's doing. But anyway, I think I just played with it for 6 to 8 hours, and I'm very impressed with it. So I'll hand it off to you. Tell me what you've done and what your initial thoughts on these are.
Absolutely, Rajni. I think one of the first things I noticed, again, I got the what do you call Bard access with Palm 2, and then I have the OpenAI with ChatGPT Plus. I'm even paying $20. The first thing I noticed on Claude is that it allows you to upload files for processing. That's a big difference, and it allows up to 75,000 words. So I thought I'll put that to test first. And essentially, I have a lot of these Zoom calls that I run through Whisper AI to get a transcript, and often at times it comes with no formatting. It just plain out, straight out text. So I thought that's an interesting experiment. I took a document with 15,000 words and 75,000 characters, and I've been trying with other systems, and it's extremely excruciatingly painful to get anything formatted. And this one, I just basically, as you can see, I attached a file and I tried to mention attached file, but it didn't figure it out. So I said I had to give it, spell it out, use this text file. And there it goes. It even put a name in front of each person, and it chewed through the entire transcript. I had to say continue
Oh,
like
wow.
5 to 6 times to continue, but it did process the entire file, and I'm going to be spending at least so as you can see the whole thing, um, pages and pages of it, and I'm very impressed at this point for this feature alone. That it's able to process large documents and do the job for you, which I think um, OpenAI, even with paid account, I don't have access to. I just they're not rolling it out yet.
Yeah.
Um, couple of things I noticed. I'll mention. Um, it's trying to do a good job at speaker identification here. It's saying Joel said this, Angela said this, but there are also mistakes. Like for example, this is Sven. It says Van. It doesn't get the. A lot of these OpenAI systems are still not very accurate when it's trying to get people names. And also there are cases where Jeremy says thank you, Jeremy, right? Rate this. So I think speaker identification is not the, uh, but it's trying to get there.
I think it's,
I
yeah, some
I
of them has to
first
do with accents too, right? And some of them, when there's accent, I'm pretty sure it's harder for the systems to identify. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
right.
But this has nothing to
There
do
is.
with
Go ahead.
because you fed it transcript. You didn't feed it. So this issue was not from Claude as much as Whisper AI getting you the transcript, right?
No, yeah, I fed it essentially. Let's see if I can. I don't know
Did
whether
you
you
feed
can
it a
speak.
text file or a video? You fed it a text file, right?
So this is the text file. look at this, right? So this is very raw. It's a raw output of line by line, natural pauses in the sentences. Uh, you can see that it's good, but it's still not a like a readable paragraph, right?
Got it. Okay.
Line by line transcript of the entire Zoom call. It's still
Okay, but
still
like if
better.
you scroll up a little bit, it's called it's a van here. Like if you look at the line, the transcription basically said I'm van instead of Sven, So
Oh, you're right. I forgot. Okay, I stand corrected. I think it's the Whisper AI that's not getting the name right. I didn't. Yeah, it's a speech to text model that kind of failed in that job, not necessarily the fault of Claude. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, that's a good one.
perfect. Okay. So at the bottom line, right, there's a couple of things I forgot to mention. This data is good. It's not a 2021 data. This is 2023 data in Claude. So if you're trying to use it, I use this. I was blown away. Again, I didn't compare this. So I know a lot of you are looking for jobs. I just picked a senior manager interview. So if you're getting ready for an interview, right, one of the things is you might have done certification years ago, but when you might be doing all of these things in your day-to-day job, but when you're preparing for interview, it's nice to put in frameworks for you to be prepared for, make sure you're using the right terminology. So I said, okay, if I was a senior manager preparing for interview, what would I do? And the answer to it was pretty fast. And also, because I've done this role for so long, I wanted to test the validity. And so far, what I see is prepare, brush up on terminologies, questions to ask, job description. This is generic. I'm pretty sure Bart, GBT, everybody will give you the same answers. But what I like to do is dig deeper. So I said, okay, what is PM methodologies? What do you want to see? So of course, it came back with agile, waterfall, hybrid approaches. So let's go one level deeper, right? Like if you are going to do brushing up on estimating techniques, how do you do estimation techniques? So if you don't mind doing that, I like to go like 2 or 3 levels to see if the system can get to a level and it's still not hallucinating, right?
Right. Let's ask.
So
Yeah, you're
the
able to
good part is
drill
you said
down.
brushing estimating techniques, but it looks like it's holding some information from the previous conversation. Because estimating technique doesn't always have to be for projects, but maybe it does. But because it's just projects to estimate current project parametric, it almost feels like it's continuing the conversation. Does that make sense? Even
It
though it didn't
is. It is.
specifically say project estimation. So bottom up 3 point estimate function. Okay, I don't want to read through all this, but basically all these are very valid estimating techniques. So I just feel like it's a great tool to assist you with preparing for an interview. You can, I'm pretty sure, ask questions, most commonly asked questions, and just what is almost like having a person next to you preparing you for your interview. Again, I'm pretty sure you can use the other LLMs too, but so far, what I've done in the last 6 to 8 hours with Claude has really, it's fast and it feels like the answers are all accurate. So I'm excited about playing with it more.
Absolutely. I think Rajni, one of the things you brought up in a earlier summary of Cloud is that it's able to process large amount of again. Those are the key takeaways, right? The large amount of like data, like in one shot, rather than feeding it in little bits and pieces and trying to stitch it all together, right? That's first thing that impressed me. And like in your case, it seems like continuing the conversation, drilling it down to the level of detail and with much more accuracy. You said 2 times more accurate, or there were some
Yeah, that's
statistics
what
there,
they're
right?
claiming is 2 times fewer harmful, but better than. I mean, everybody's going to say better than ChatGPT because that's who they're going against. But so far, what I've seen, I'm very impressed. There's not a lot of hallucination. It's to the point. You can dig to a level that makes sense. So I really like it. So I think kind of building on this, right? A lot of like OpenAI and Bart, everybody is kind of, the more data you put in, the better the answers are going to be. But I think that's why OpenAI started with let's consume the whole internet. Whether it's 2021, there's 23. But now, how do you refine the answers better? Is let's get the proprietary data, right? What if you
Right.
can get into Reddit? What if you can get into Twitter? Or what if you can get into Quora? Then your answers are going to get even better. And that's why all those communities are resisting selling that because That's gonna
That's a wealth of
that is
knowledge.
their
Yeah.
secret sauce where they can make money,
Correct.
right? So they want money for
Correct.
that. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out because almost everybody's going to start looking common, almost the same. If you're just using open internet, the more proprietary data you have, the better these tools are going to get to. So
So how do we see this evolving to consumers like us, right? Either a business consumer or a regular consumer, right? There's these different APIs. Like already, I can see that there's open AI can help you with certain conversational style better than other platforms, and Claude probably can service large amount of data processing in a single shot. So each one has its own unique differentiator. That's how they are coming out with these features, right? Um, but for entrepreneurs and people who like to play with it, how do we see this? Like, are they going to stitch all this together? Like, they're now subscribing to 3 services to get the job done.
so I think what's going to happen is it almost like will become a, to me personally, like an Android versus Google, right? Once you go down the Android path, sorry, Android versus Apple, sorry, from a pure device perspective, there's going to be a style preference. There's going to be because even Claude has two versions available: a premium version that is gives you the best answers, and then a light version which is quick and fast, but it is cheaper. So just like that, you're gonna either go down the premium path because you're a lawyer or you're healthcare, whatever. Like very somebody who really wants better answers than faster answers, but some of them will require I'm going to do a lot of volume, so I want the faster answers to come back. So I think it's going to depend on that, but also it'll become almost a preference of style, I think, because honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to see differentiation between this, like major differentiation. It'll be a preference of the UI, is what I think. But where you apply to, because think about it, right? Everybody has some quality of um, uh, intelligence behind it. The APIs you connect to is going to be the same, right? The only thing that's going to differentiate is your data and the questions you're asking. So I think I personally don't. I personally feel like all of these are going to be commodities, but the application layer built on top is what's going to differentiate it.
So if I hear you say that, so you're still imagining it's a Google versus Microsoft, and I don't even know where Apple is in this whole thing. But
Mhm.
if it's Google versus Microsoft, now Google has this Bing engine, and then on the side this OpenAI floating around, and then sorry, the Microsoft has that, and then Google has the Bard and Palm 2 and other things, and then has this Anthropic they invested and it's floating around, right? And then you have Apple, we don't know what they're doing, but hopefully they are working on something with all the data they collected. That's right. It's interesting.
No, so we are where search was what 20 years ago, right? There was Yahoo, there was Lycos Search, there's Aero.
Lycos,
This is a
yeah,
bunch
there
of
were
people.
a whole bunch of them.
Remember
Yeah,
those? Yeah, so that's where we are. We have a bunch of them. There will be a few winners. Not all these are going to make it, but I think the deeper pockets are going to win. It's going to be a marathon more than a sprint, but it always happens. There's always a newcomer who overtakes it, but I don't think it's going to be a one player take it all. I think it's going to be like maybe it will be. Who knows? 20 years from now, but I feel like we are in the stage of search engine, which was okay. Some of the name like Yahoo. What happened to Yahoo? Right, 2%, maybe one less than 1% people use it. So I think this will evolve. But to your point, the whoever has the best interface already, a lot of people, especially the business searches, are preferring the Chat GPT interface to a Google search. But it's also sometimes oversold, right? A lot of early adopters are like, "Oh my God, Google's going to die," because that's not happening. So I think what if we hit 100 million users in Chat GPT, and it's already last episode we
and
talked about it's going down.
that's what I was going to, like, now with this release. I don't know how many of those people are now playing with the cloud. It'll be interesting to see what the usage is in the next
I
few
think it's the
months.
same 100 million people jumping around the early adopters. I don't
Right.
think the rural market has come to it, right? Like I think, well, what is it, 2 billion online, whatever searches happen on Google. So you have very tiny sliver, and as soon as the students took the time off for summer, the dip happened because they were not using as much. So I feel like
Gotcha.
we still haven't hit the threshold. I think it's still early adopters just playing around with everything. We don't have a killer app for the next billion people to onboard. This has to
Right.
go 10x more before we can say this is mainstream. It's still early adopters like us. There's a lot of value. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's hit mainstream yet.
Got it. Let's move on to the next topic.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely crossed the 5 minute mark, so that's good. All right. So the next one is interesting to me. I know we just use KPMG and Microsoft as an example, but all companies are doing it. KPMG is investing 2 billion into AI, partnering with Microsoft. So I just saw an article in the Wall Street Journal. Regardless of what happens, the people selling pitch and shovels are the people winning in this generative AI gold rush, right? And consulting companies are big winners in it. So if you look at it, a lot of companies, because of the hype around it, like, hey, how do I use it? But they don't want to invest time in training their people or getting hiring experts on staff. But they want to at least do PO, like point just little MVP projects for some of the ideas that they have. So what
Right.
they're turning to is consulting companies, whether it's
Right.
Accenture, whether it's KPMG, whether it's Dell Technology. There's just a bunch of companies doing that. So the consulting companies have every incentive to do this because there's going to be a big demand. So Accenture is investing 3 billion into this. They plan to hire 80,000 people into it. They plan to either recruit, train, or acquire companies in the space in the next few years to grow their presence to 80,000. Right? So I think a lot of this is going to happen in the market. I think it's the right thing. It's usually consulting, and then at some point in the future, we'll find out, oh my God, this is too expensive. Let's hire our own people when it becomes more standardized. I think that's the cycle we're going to go through, but it's exciting. If you're in the consulting or you're interested in consulting, this would be a great space to get into at this point.
If I were to draw a parallel, I think in our lifetime we had this cloud technology, right? When cloud came out, it's the same thing, right? There was a lot of these consulting firms that started forming first, offering what can you do with cloud, right? What is cloud? Explaining and getting people on board to use the technology, and eventually people started migrating their workloads and other things. I can see very similar pattern here, right? So first thing, let's get people more aware. Let's offer some consulting, right? Let's get them visualize their workloads into AI. Interesting.
I think that's what we should be, because we've done so much work in it for the last year. We can definitely ask people if they have any projects that they want to do. We'll be more than happy to consult for them because it's fun for us to do this. So I'm excited about that.
Excellent.
All right,
All right, we're
let's
almost
move
out of
on
time
to
on
the
this.
next topic
Yeah,
because we
Elon
took a
and
lot on
this.
clock. So now for X.ai. So this is still undercover for the most part, other than um, Elon announced it a couple of days ago on Twitter that it's coming. There's not a lot of information about it. There's a Twitter Spaces later today where they're gonna announce more information. I think this is a again, if you have to speculate, right? This is anti-open AI where they said it was open, but then it didn't become more. It wasn't open. So I think the general thing was without restrictions. If you're building AI applications, you can use X, is what I understand. It's to understand true nature. Sorry, I'm looking at making sure I'm. It's to
True
understand the
nature
true
of
nature of the
universe.
universe.
Right.
That's what it can be as abstract as you want to be, but that you won't expect any less from Elon. But that's I
Well,
think I'm
I
excited about it. But
yeah, I saw that the mysteries of the universe thing, right? I think, but if you reduce it down to what Twitter is all about, it's about people and their probably at times unfiltered raw thoughts floating around and parody accounts. So I think maybe if a very skimmed down version of mysteries of universe is what's making people do all of this, right? I think they have this wealth of data that they can mine and start creating something. I'm predicting maybe that's the first thing, right? Take all of this data. Now that activity is slowing down, right? And with the threads, a bunch of people are going there. The Twitter probably needs something new, right? I think this is probably a good entry point.
I think it's like a to me it feels like it's a more overarching company that's going to take into account all the data sources that Elon's company has, right? So
Right.
we talked
That's
about
also
it just
true.
before Claude, right? So Claude is great because it uses the internet, but at the end of the day, without proprietary data, all these systems going to start looking the same. But what is Elon's companies have Twitter, wealth of data, which is proprietary, And that's another reason he was trying to he reduced the number of access because people were scraping it. So he's
Right.
reducing these access to it. Second, imagine the amount of visual data that Tesla has captured so far.
That's also
All
true.
the right between the text and the visual and whatever information they have in space, he's got so much proprietary data that it can be used that nobody else will have. So I'm excited about, but again, it'll have different applications, right? So now you're talking about not a generic LLM, but a very specific one that can do sentiment analysis of people, do visual. I can't even imagine all the things you can do when you have almost a visual of, let's just say, at least the United States, right? All these Teslas going, all the miles they've put in, all these auto driving things. So to me, the data is proprietary and so much data that I feel like if it works well, it will lead to its own specific applications that we don't even know at this point. But I'm
Yeah,
excited
thanks.
about this
Thanks
one.
for painting the broader picture. I'm curious. Does Tesla have a microphone so they listen to you while you're in the car as well? Probably that's another, like Alexa, right? It's listening to you all the time,
Mhm.
whether you want it or not. Very interesting. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah, so
experimentation there.
yeah, in a couple of weeks when we come again, I'm pretty sure we'll know more about it. Again, just like we are in wild west, right? When it comes to this, like search engines were like cloud computing was, like you mentioned, the last cycle, in a brand new cycle of a lot of competitors in the space. It will shake out, but I think the broader theme is some of them will win, but overall generative AI will improve. A lot of these customer applications will come into play. More audience, we 100 million. There's no way we won't get a billion, yeah, in the next 10 years, right? So this is going to happen. So if you're an entrepreneur, investor, or even somebody college graduate coming out with this interests you, this is a great space to get in, right? Just like Web3 is still kind of lurking in the background, but I think between these two things, there are some really interesting opportunities that are coming up in the next decade that we're still early. So I'm excited about it.
100%. I think a lot of this technology, I think the Web3 tech companies are starting to play with it as well, right? So all of this is going to get absorbed into that type of distributed computing, like decentralization software. These kind of things will also start picking up some of this and augment their feature set. It's going to be very interesting what's going to come next wave. I think a lot of these are waiting for the next wave of investment to flow in, right? We can already see the inflation easing. Maybe by this time next year, um, the community funding a lot of these projects are going to go active.
Agree. And I think there's a couple of slivers of it, right? There's a B2B space, there's a B2C, B2 business to consumer space is a little more fickle because the technology is moving at such a rapid pace. You really can't build a standard application like we talked about for
Right.
replica. Once they updated the backend, it felt like you were talking to somebody else.
Different
There's some
person. Yeah.
common issues we're seeing that, yeah, that will get better as we go further in this technology cycle. But from a business to business, I think the applications are right now. Even what KPMG doing is they're going to leverage a lot of the co-pilot stuff, right? Whether it comes to writing code, taking meeting summaries, whatever it is, they have some tools that are will impact businesses and processes right now, right? You're not like waiting for 10 years for this. I think some of the consumer applications might be a few months out, but they are business use cases right now. The consulting companies see, the businesses
Yep.
see, but they don't have the talent to bridge the gap. So if you are an entrepreneur in this space, this is a great opportunity. So, and again,
Absolutely. Yeah. The
this
fact
is just
fact that
keeps
these consulting companies are forming is the proof enough, right? That there is realistic use cases already. People have figured this out.
so you just follow the money, right? At the end of the day, people between these three companies we just talked about is like $5 to $6 billion being invested in it. They're not doing it because they're throwing this money for the goodness
Right.
of humanity. Right? They're doing this to make money. So
Right.
it is a great indication of things to come. So
100%. I agree.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's. I'm excited. Thank you for your time, and uh, for our audience, we'll come back with the more hot takes on the latest topics in a couple of weeks. Until then, see you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, 1 Million Minds, and we put all our episodes there as well. Thank you. Thanks, Rajni.